Well, hello, that's me again. Today is December 5th, 2024, and yeah, never leave your hatches open in the combat zones, real combat zones. So I will start from what everybody will be asking me inevitably, and I want to only point out that. And I'm sorry to say there will be very many unhappy people again in discussion boards, but I want to stress Arab armies do not fight combined arms warfare that well, and the issue of the ISR is always, well, it's not good. This is about Syria, and that people will say that, well, today the Syrian army abandoned Hama, which is one of the key, basically, cities. But the point is, here is what it comes down to, and everybody will ask me that, oh yeah, there's something happening there such a way that Russians got the slap on their face. I'm sorry, guys, there are no Russian troops in Syria, except for the service troops and guard of the Khmeimim and Tartus bases, one of them air base and general purpose base, and another is Tartus. And Larry Johnson asks a very legitimate question, which is, of course, he asked very straightforward. Why is the United States supporting Islamic extremists worse than Al-Qaeda? Which, of course, this is what those people are, who are somehow mastered 30,000, which by the size of the conflict is a large force, and evidently it's being now pummeled by Russian Air Force. Very simple. The answer is very simple. And here we will come down to this issue of Ukraine and overall general geopolitical situation. And because the United States is a sore loser in this conflict, or rather in all of those conflicts, in some sense people say, oh, that's basically the lesson to Vladimir Putin, never freeze the conflict. First, people still do not understand the status of Russia and Russian forces in Syria. They still, for some reason, think that they are there to protect Syria. Not quite. As I already stated, there are no really regular troops in Syria. They have been withdrawn, and yeah, you give it to the Syrian army generals who are evidently are busy mostly with parading their status and whatever the hell they have in terms of their possessions, but they are not that good in terms of the warfare. And you get this what you got this. Of course, we have not only United States but Israel all over the place. We have Turkey there, which now, and everybody now tries to say that, oh no, we're not doing this. It's complete baloney, of course. United States is known to support terrorism, the same as with those chihuahuas from London. And you have Israel. It's all opportunistic, but as you can see yourself, we have this situation. It's Kremlin today says, well, Kremlin comments on military assistance to Syria. Moscow is discussing with Damascus what it needs to beat back jihadist forces. And we're in constant dialogue with our Syrian friends in Damascus. Depending on the assessment of the situation, the amount of assistance can be decided. That the Syrian authorities would need to deal with the militants and eliminate this threat, Peskov told journalists during irregular briefings. And there's so much panic, there's so much grim, forecasts. Well, Russians have basically resources, including the personnel, which can be basically moved to Syria pretty fast. And after that, there will be no communications on any kind of, so to speak, settling of, for example, Idlib zone. It needs to be simply cleaned up. And the fact that Erdogan is now, crying, us a river about the fact that there will be refugees, well, too freaking bad, so that's what it is. And I'm pretty sure that there is a lot of communications between Vladimir Putin and him, and actually not sure, it's the fact that they already discussed some things, and I'm pretty sure Vladimir Putin in a very soft manner explained to Mr. Erdogan, well, the incorrectness of his ways. But let's get back to something which is absolutely critical, and we're gonna go back to what really is the pivotal geopolitical issue, of course, and this is Ukraine and everything which connected to it, because the NATO, that means United States and Western countries of West Europe, sustained a catastrophic defeat there. Now, here comes this very interesting news, and I will explain why it is interesting. The conversation between Valery Gerasimov, of course, the Chief of General Staff, and Charles Q. Brown, who is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, took place last week. Russian Chief of General Staff Valery Gerasimov had held a phone call with the chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, Charles Brown. The defense minister of Moscow has said General Gerasimov last spoke with his American counterpart in March 2003. And this is what is the most important. This was Moscow who requested this conversation. You may say, why? Well, we obviously, as it is very usually traditional between the militaries, granted that Valery Gerasimov and Charles Brown, they have a very different operational status. Charles Brown is the merely Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is the, well, so to speak, how to say, harmonizing organ of the United States Army, and it basically sits and reads the plans provided by the commands and services for the, well, for all kinds of the hostilities which United States conducts. General, Gerasimov has a full operational control of the Russian armed forces. In other words, while Vladimir Putin is the supreme commander and Minister of Defense is above Gerasimov, but Gerasimov is de facto commander of the and conducts operational control of all armed forces of Ukraine, of Russia. Ranging from ground forces to Navy to Air Force, and that's what Russian General Staff does. So, and they spoke. Why did they speak? Well, the question is this. We already have the first reports today that Ukrainian forces and those people who support them, which is of course Americans, British, Poles, and all kinds of other people who think that they're that great, well, they already use cluster munition with the chemical poisonous substances against Bryansk Oblast, against civilians. I'm pretty sure that Gerasimov called for this reason and obviously warned Mr. Brown that if in the last desperate attempt to conduct some kind of the false flag, or let alone some war crime, which is primarily the Pentagon was known for, supporting this terrorist regime in Kiev. Well, for some reason, the United States always supports terrorists. I don't know, it's really funny. And so basically it was a warning, but of course they keep their wraps on that. But there was also explanation to what next will be used if this continues. So because, well, they need to, essentially United States needs to crawl out of this whole situation. If not, then it will be made very much, public in terms of the humiliation. And Russian media also are being trusted today way more than whatever is the corporate BSers in the United States or in London. Speaking of which, and here if you think that there are many people who say, oh, you know what, you are being too harsh, towards the British, for example, okay, over that American media. As I already stated, average chief editor of the US or British media is the man or woman without integrity, without honor, and most of them are, basically the proud students of Mr. Goebbels. That's the only thing they can do. First, most of them are ignoramuses, basically. You cannot take them seriously on any matter which goes beyond the lingerie, the latest iPhone, and maybe Tesla automobiles. That's about it. Oh, Hollywood. Yeah, that's pretty much the level of the most of the journals in the world. But when it comes down to the military and it comes down to actually propaganda so crude that you begin to really scratch your head. And we, of course, come to this. Everybody knows by now. Daily Mail did this. You see this? Some people write the moral of the story about the fake Daily Mail article. You cannot find this article, but I'll explain why it is real. With North Korean women, of course, we all know that, and Ukrainians already stated they eliminated 100,000 of North Koreans, so that is why you cannot find any of them. So, and yeah, Pentagon supports the claim that there are North Koreans. That pretty much tells you everything you need to know about Pentagon and the basically cabal which runs the United States. And so they talk about what they did. They took the Sasha and Zhenya, so the twins, which of they serve in the Donetsk Republic at that time, the independent forces, since 2014. And what they did, as you can see yourself, two female soldiers from North Korea were allegedly pictured in Zheleznogorsk in Kursk region. Well, so what can I say? For starters, let's start with which is not even, that tells you that basically human herpes works in the British media. There are no normal people. Most of them are like this Rosenberg guy who lies into your face. He's a low-life scumbag, you know. So that's pretty much describes everybody in the, British media. And there we go. So you cannot find this article for a simple reason. So yesterday they suddenly come up and try to find it anywhere in the Daily Mail, because you cannot find original article. And guess what? They call it clarifications and corrections. Sure. And they say that in an article published on the 4th December, since deleted from Mail Online, we stated that Kim Jong-un had sent Korean women to fight as cannon fodder for Putin in Ukraine. This had been based on imagery provided by a trusted freelance reporter. I can tell you who those freelance reporters are. Those freelance reporters are Ukrainian SBU or other intelligence assets, or most likely those freelance reporters from MI6 and all kinds of the think tanks stuffed with these inbred imbeciles in London who are very desperate to somehow, state of which already came the utter military defeat of the NATO forces, because Ukraine is a NATO force, and they are desperate, so they lower themselves to the worst possible crude propaganda. And well, Daily Mail, of course, you will never find those clarifications and corrections. So that's what they do. They lie. And in this particular case, this is one of the best examples of what the Western media, mainstream media, represent. And anybody who tells me that, oh, Wall Street Journal is like different, oh, New York Times is different, no. They are tabloids. They are stuffed with imbeciles who went through the degree mills, get their glorified English degrees in nothing. And so there you go. They write. And of course, now they say, there's a, let's say that imagine that it is from, it was delivered to them from a freelance report from Ukraine. That tells you everything. And when we talk about the whole situation and the the lack of the competences, be them intelligence or be them, military, for example, those people don't like to fight. First, for example, they cannot fight in the real serious conflict, but that is why they love to use, for example, the United States loves to use proxy terrorists, Islamic terrorists, and for some reason, those Islamic terrorists never defend Palestinians. They never attack Israel, right? So this is so simple, really. And the question of that is, as already stated, desperation, because they need to come up with any kind of the BS, including this propaganda which constantly being spewed from all corners of the corporate media in the United States and in the West about that, oh, we're going to freeze the conflict, or we're going to do this and that. Russians are just calmly just shrugged it off and say, no. We're going to do what we, decided to do. And this is all for the consumption of the public and forming of the public opinion, because this is the only thing that people do. Those people do. And now comes this issue when we look at, for example, what Ted Pastol, his fantasies, he talks about Oreshnik or any kind of Russian nuclear forces or something he has no clue about. I mean, this is what they do. They spew BS. I understand. Many of them are, in a perverted way, patriots, well, patriots is not patriots really. Patriots actually see the blemishes of their own countries and work towards addressing them. But those people are chauvinists. They cannot take it. They just, because they're losers in a larger geopolitical sense. And let's take a look on why there's so much, so to speak, talk about all this. Well, as I already stated, for the well, I'm sorry to say this, the us, general public, especially public which has no serious military experience, and especially serious military education, the collapse of the Western militaries is not just in the obvious things which you can see every day. There is another Leopard was blown up yesterday. There are all kinds of Abramses burned. All those expensive toys by the American military industrial complex are being blown up to smithereens by Russians every day. It's just the fact that it happened on the metaphysical or fundamentally operational and strategic level, and many people do not get it, because when you talk about operations, how can I express again the gravity of the situation? Because United States sustained a doctrinal strategic defeat. Doctrinal being that the clockwork of the American military is not working. It got broken. It wasn't designed to start with to fight the serious wars with the, as they like to say. Well, let's take a look. If you go and take a look at all kinds of things which are happening around special military operation, including this imbecile, hello, people, you elected all those people. So Germans, don't tell me that, she says that Annalena Baerbock has reportedly said Berlin would support an international peacekeeping force. These guys still discuss those things just for the primarily internal consumption because they are morons. And Berlin will not rule out sending its troops to Ukraine to secure a ceasefire if a deal is reached between Moscow and Kiev. Sure, good luck. It is, well, if I reach the status of the Superman, well, I'm not gonna go there anyway. So, but yeah, we have this guy. He is a repugnant creature, Mr. Blinken, and he should send his children there. I don't understand why American, neocons and warmongers who, say that they need to begin conscripting men as young as 18 to succeed on the battlefield against Russia. Well, Blinken he's Schlemazel from New York with degree in law. He wouldn't understand the first thing about tactics, let alone how operations and strategies are developed on the serious military level. But yeah, he wants Ukrainian 18-year-olds, kids, essentially to be killed in mass because you cannot prepare serious soldier for that. And as he talks about getting younger people into the fight, we think, well, I don't know who we think. Those people who think like that, they should be, essentially arrested as the war criminals. Many of us think it's necessary, Blinken stated. Right now, 18 to 25-year-olds are not in the fight, he said, noting it is up to Kyiv to decide how best to get them into the frontline operations. Well, as I already stated, the best way to is for Mr. Blinken and all people who think like that, send their kids, extricate them from those degree mills from the Ivy League and throw them into the front line after the 1 month of the preparation. In this case, of course, it will be more than less than 1 month when they begin to, basically recruit those young people. And so, well, just to demonstrate to you the quality of and why it's collapsing, here is yesterday, well, actually today, captured Ukrainian officer told how he was commanded by a junior sergeant. Vladimir Kit told RIA News that he was forcibly mobilized in the city of Lvov and sent to the Rivne training ground, where he was told that after completing the 2 months officer courses, so everything you need to know. You cannot prepare a tactical level officer in 2 months, period. It's impossible. And guess what? Here I was a platoon commander, junior lieutenant, and of course, guess what? The chief sergeant of the platoon with the rank of junior sergeant did it for pretty much all commanding for him. Well, because obviously he had zero experience, he had zero education. This is pretty much as most of the graduates of the Sandhurst. They still pretend that you can prepare the officer in 44 weeks. This is, I mean, laughable. And that is why they cannot win anything. That's why they have to constantly resort to supporting terrorists, false flags, kill people, I mean, civilians and things like that. So, and that brings us to this. A Russian court actually issued arrest warrant for the U.S. mercenary. Well, most likely he's not mercenary. He's a cadre, U.S. soldier. His name is Derek Bales. Is to stand trial for committing a terrorist act in Russia Kursk region. According to the investigative committee, Bales is a former U.S. infantryman and the owner of the Forward Observation Group, which refers to itself as a military-style brand that sells tactical gear and accessories, but which Russia maintains is a private military company. Well, there are all kinds of ways to hide the backgrounds of all those infantrymen from United States or Great Britain or any other NATO country, but it's all legends. Everybody on this, both sides understand it's all BS, and this is the cadre, either officer or whatever, the NCO, who, well, basically officially retired, and then of course expressed the desire to go and die. Well, they do not fight very much on the front lines because they, as any mercenaries, because they do not have the standing power. None of them wants to die, unless of course they are visited by Russian artillery or missiles, so then they are dead. But other than that, they are primarily used in the tactical rear, including, for example, the barrier troops. They shoot Ukrainians who try to retreat. And so this is everything you need to know. And when I said that it's doctrinal, or every single thing about from Hollywood to American culture in large, you talk about this infantryman, well, guess what? Look at this. Those people do not understand that they are not fit to fight those wars. And as it was the 2016, for example, the Asymmetric Warfare Group, unclassified, for official use only, a Russian New Generation Warfare Handbook. And to understand to what is degree of the professional incompetence of the Western militaries, here we have, for example, a handbook of U.S. Army formations to increase awareness of Russian tactics, near-peer capabilities. Okay, near-peer. Well, for some people who wrote this garbage, essentially, they need to really accept the fact that actually it is United States which is near peer, and actually probably lower than near peer on the battlefield, because, as I already stated, the doctrinal collapse had happened. And when you look at this and say why I have to pay attention to this and constantly stress this. Well, because this is exactly explanation what is happening. It doesn't mean that United States Army doesn't, has no courageous or competent people. It does. Make no mistake. But the system, I'm talking about systemic issue. I'm talking about the clockwork is absolutely bankrupt. And one of the issues which we look at always this, Hollywood-induced, entertainment industry-induced, people believe in the Top Gun Maverick, that the country which uses, Su-57 also is equipped with the S-75 Dvina complexes from 1950s. Air defense complexes. That's what you have. But yeah, people look at this garbage and they believe that. You have the US pilots from the US Air Force discussing the maneuvers of Maverick. I mean, this is preposterous. These people evidently do not understand what they are dealing with, because obviously they live and educated and trained within the system which emphasizes this. Tactical minutia, look at this book, so if you take a look at this book, what can I say? They just love those tactical things, and, well, how to put it politely? Reality, of course, is completely different. And let me explain to you why there's so much of the emphasis on all those tactical things, all those, how to make the ambush, how to do this and that. Well, simple as this. Because relative tactics is, especially ground forces tactics, is relatively easy. You need to have your ranges, you need to have your distances, you need to have your depths developed, you need to have all other things. They still require a lot of mathematics, but it is obviously the modern interaction of the forces, real combined, or as they love to call, joint force. And here we have this thing. The reason it's all popular, all those special forces, and people talk about this, like this heroization. Well, nothing wrong. There are many heroic people there, make no mistake, of these forces and operations, is because the war is not fought on the tactical level, not won on the tactical level. Tactical level is important, and it is one of the part of the tactical operational strategic vertical, which works constantly up and down between itself. But it's the fact that you need to understand. Let me show you something. You see this? That's company in defense. It's a Russian company, but it already requires you the company level commanding, and this is from the combat manuals in Russia. And as you can see yourself, this is just pretty much standard company part, but usually you have the company which is commanded by people from senior lieutenant to captain. And yeah, you have people who are platoon commanders, usually 3, 4, and so you have interaction with these people. You have to figure out and do many things to really, for example, to set up the defense. But when you take a look at this thing, like battalion, well, guess what is the most important thing? Battalion is the first tactical formation up, which has already its staff. You may say, oh, why so? Well, because you have number of companies in your battalions, and you need to integrate and provide the operational control over them. And then we go into the brigades, and brigades have serious staffs. And as you can see yourself, this is, for example, what the motorized rifle brigade is in the defense. I will come back to this more, but for example, let's take a look at brigade combat team. This is a brigade combat team, which is essentially brigade. It's about 4,000 to 5,000 people, depending on the combination of the, how many battalions they stick into this. It's a U.S. Army, and this is from Field Manual 3-96, notional organization of forces, for example, for a movement to contact. And this is what you have. You have all kinds of the battalion, battalion columns, and you develop this type of the movement to contact, which of course was written in 2021. Well, you have to look at this and throw it away. You know why? Let's go back to the motor rifle brigade in defense, for example, which notionally United States Army wanted to fight. They wanted to show those damn Ruskies how to fight combined arms warfare. So, and if you look attentively at motorized rifle brigade in the defense, you will see yourself that the fundamental difference, apart from other long-range fires, you see this? And this is the old one. This is from 2016, 2015. You have the so-called ZRDN, which is the literally Zenith missile battalion, which is armed with all kinds of air defense systems. And as you can see yourself, at that time it's Tor 1M, today it's Tor 2M, stunning air defense complex. You have there all kinds of air defense artillery, and you have, as you can see yourself highlighted, the long-range fire artillery and MLRS, which all, without exemption, outrange anything U.S. Army or NATO armies can put on the battlefield. And I'm not talking about the things which, of course, in terms of air defense, they are simply NATO armies, their capabilities are puny. They literally do not, that is why, well, the whole thing was based about the assumption as brigade combat team rights. As you can see yourself, this is, we go back to the FM 396, Close air support, air interdiction, and counter-air operations are essential to success of large-scale movements to contact. They talk about the level of brigades. Local air superiority or as a minimum air parity is vital to the operational success. Not anymore. The fundamentals of a movement to contact, and they describe the fundamentals, and they talk about in this field manual a movement to contact may result in a meeting engagement. A meeting engagement is a combat action that occurs when a moving force, incompletely deployed for battle, engages an enemy at an unexpected time and place. In a meeting engagement, the force that reacts first to the unexpected contact generally gains the advantage over the enemy. And yeah, this was written by the people who know only how to beat the crap out of Arab armies, like the Saddam Hussein army. Which is not to say it's minor power, it's a third-rate military, and now then suddenly they have to go out and see this, realities. Let me show you. This is the comparison of what Russians, for example, long-range fires today are armed with. This is comparison between the best what Bundeswehr has, and they say it's the best, at least Western long-range, mobile, air system. Artillery system. As you can see yourself, the ranges. It's not even funny. Russians outrange it almost 2 times, and even from Star S, the older one, when it was using Krasnopol, it was outranging, or it was at least equal to any, for example, the self-propelled artillery. So, and this is not only that. Well, when you look attentively at their defense, or apart from those Tors like this, Tor M2, so, for example, which is the standard issue for Zerden. Zerden, essentially the battalion, division is called. In Russian, division means battalion. You have obviously things like that, Book M3, which are organic to any kind of the brigade level force. And of course we can see of this, which is of course S-400s, which are already level of divisions, and the divisions of the air defense and things like that. So it's so complex and so overwhelmingly advantageous over anything NATO, including the United States, can produce. It's not even funny. And then when you look at this, well, guess what happens? It is one thing when the Russians write their combat manuals, and there are many classified parts in that. They write it and they implement them as they go, but pretty much all field manuals of the US Army, you can throw them away. They do not work. They will not be able to, go to the combat contact, because they will be detected. They will not be able to put themselves in the columns, battalion and company columns, because they will be destroyed. And it doesn't matter if they even have parity in the close air support, because that close air support will be shut down. Apart from the fact Russians have themselves pretty damn good air force, and I'm talking about the weapons which the United States simply doesn't have. And then when you look at this, that's when you understand why they're so desperate, because basically everything they knew about war, or rather they pretended that they knew, is practically worthless. As Mr. Colonel Matichuk stated, I want to remind you, it was already clear during this for a counteroffensive. The colonel spoke about the tactics of the armed forces of Ukraine in Kursk. The main feature is he talks about they use American tactics. And while using American tactics in battle, guess what? It kills you. The main feature of the battlefields, and he talks about obviously operations too, in the Kursk region is the use of the reconnaissance and combat tactics by the enemy. Military expert retired Colonel Anatoly Matvichuk told Lenta.ru. He explained that this complicates the confrontation with the armed forces of Ukraine. The units that broke through to our territory switched to the mode of reconnaissance and combat activities. This is a purely American tactic. Small groups go out on the routes, conduct reconnaissance, if necessary, combat operations, trying to find vulnerabilities. capabilities. Well, that works obviously, as I already stated, in the Middle East. Doesn't work with Russia. And as I already stated, anybody who didn't lose the sight of what is happening in, let's say, Kursk, in the U.S. Army, they have to understand. I'm not talking about those London military planners. They are incompetent. They just killed as I already stated, whole combat arms army. This is how good, quote unquote, they are. And this is what I wanted to tell you guys today about all that. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee and two. I will need to disappear for a few days, but then I should appear again. And I'll talk to you later, guys. Have a nice rest of your week. Bye-bye.